You're watching Oregon's News at 7 on Oregon's Fox.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining us. I'm Claire Brennan. Starting tonight, I'll be taking over as your Oregon's News at 7 and 10 anchor, and I couldn't be more excited to bring you local and national news. We're keeping an eye on the Cedar Creek fire, which has been burning for over 2 months now. Right now, the fire is about 1/3 of the way to being totally contained. That's a jump of about 12% from this time last week. Fire officials saying because of wetter and cooler conditions, the fire is moving a lot slower. It isn't considered contained until it hits the containment line, so it's possible for parts of the fire to burn out before they're ever considered contained. And an update tonight on the 2-story house fire that broke out this morning at 361 East 12th Avenue in Eugene. All occupants made it out safely and no one was injured. The call came in just before 8:30 a.m. Eugene police are advising drivers to avoid that area that morning, and crews say their main concern was stopping the fire from spreading throughout the densely packed neighborhood.
Yeah, in the downtown area like this with fires that get going this quickly and spread so rapidly, initial companies did a great job not only throwing ladders to the second story, but also taking care of our alpha and delta exposures to make sure there was no fire spread.
A nearby engine on a medical call saw the glow of the fire and was able to respond before 911 finished dispatching units. Eugene Springfield Fire deployed 7 fire and 2 medical units to the incident, as well as an all truck, which is dispatched to larger incidents. It carries supplies for crews, including an air tank refilling system. The cause of this fire is under investigation with the Eugene Springfield Fire Marshal's office, and it's unknown at this time how many people are displaced. And meanwhile, at least 76 people are dead after Hurricane Ian struck the western coast of Florida. It was one of the strongest storms ever to hit that area. And as the death toll climbs, some are starting to ask whether earlier evacuation orders could have saved lives. The death toll from Hurricane Ian is rising, especially around Fort Myers, Florida. Lee County officials ordered evacuations less than 24 hours before landfall. And that was a day after some neighboring counties and 2 days after storm surge warnings. Governor Ron DeSantis points out earlier forecasts had centered on Tampa. He also notes Lee County residents could have gone to shelters. Senator Rick Scott of Florida was the state's governor through several hurricanes, and he says it's important to evaluate the emergency response to each major storm. And the American Red Cross Cascades region is looking for more volunteers to help with hurricane relief efforts in Florida. Meanwhile, we checked back in with a Sweet Home woman who flew to Florida last week to help out. Jackie Nicholas tells us she's been dedicating her time at shelters in Orlando to help out evacuees. She says she's moved on now to another shelter in St. Cloud, Florida, where 100 evacuees are expected to arrive.
We've got about 100 people from a mobile home park that was just evacuated that on their way. So we're just in the process of trying to get food and carts and registration, everything set up and be ready for them.
Nicholas says people will stay in the shelter until they have a place to go to for safety, whether that's back home or elsewhere. And if you'd like to become a volunteer for the American Red Cross, you can visit redcross.org. And a layer of smoke and haze has found its way back to Western Oregon. This comes as the Cedar Creek fire continues to burn with very little containment. Another round of warm and dry conditions this week won't help in the firefighting effort. Chief Meteorologist Josh Cozart joining us now with a closer look. Josh.
Claire, it's great to have you behind the news desk there as we prepare for yet again another hot, dry stretch of weather. And of course, the air quality being impacted by the wildfire smoke. Let's take a closer look at the southern Willamette Valley. Eugene, Springfield falling back to the unsafe for sensitive groups category, in towards Cottage Grove, moderate, and Oak Ridge also at the unsafe for sensitive groups. So limit your time spent outside if you do have to be out this evening, as our visibility has improved over the past several hours. We had dropped down to about 7 miles in Eugene and Springfield earlier today, as the Cedar Creek fire has burned over 120,000 acres. It's only at about 32% containment, so we hope to see that improve, but we need the wet weather to return to do so as the marine layer continues to hold on to the south coast that will march its way to the east. So very similar to what we saw this morning, yet again tomorrow after daytime highs warm to the 80s. We'll discuss how long this dry stretch of weather lasts in just a few. Claire?
Thank you so much, Josh. Continuing our coverage tonight on the alleged use of force last month by Cottage Grove police. The investigation involves surveillance video showing police officers punching a man before arresting him last month. The man arrested was 26-year-old Alexander Harrelson of Cottage Grove. We spoke with his mother, Claudia Harrelson, today. She says there are no updates right now, only that her son is out of jail. On September 1st, a business owner called police to do a wellness check when she saw Harrelson in an alleyway waving a sword. Surveillance from another business caught footage of the moments leading up to the arrest for disorderly conduct, resisting arrest, and assault. Harrelson pled no contest in court last month. And today, Harrelson's mother still plans on seeking legal action against the two officers who she says injured his ribs and made him lose teeth.
The only reason why I want Alex to pursue it anyway is because they didn't get reprimanded. Nothing. There's no consequences for what the officers did.
We also reached out to the city of Cottage Grove. They say they have no updates yet pertaining to that investigation. And the first full weekend at the University of Oregon is over, and Eugene police just released some numbers from their party patrols. Over the weekend, officers gave out 29 citations for having an open container. They cited 43 minors for having alcohol, but there weren't any citations for unruly gathering. The party patrols are focused on residential areas near the university in an effort to reduce illegal alcohol use and noise complaints in that area. And meanwhile, a jury has been selected in the trial of the woman accused of the hit-and-run death of a man in a North Bend Mall parking lot. On March 22nd, police say 31-year-old Kelsey Culver allegedly struck and killed 41-year-old Kyle Hagquist while leaving the Mini Pet Mart parking lot at Pony Village Mall. Culver later crashed the SUV she was driving in Bunker Hill, where she was apprehended by police and later charged with second-degree murder. Coos County court officials announced this afternoon they were able to form a jury for the trial, which was scheduled to begin this morning. The 12-person jury is expected to hear the case over 4 days, with Judge Andrew Combs presiding. And turning to consumer news, gas prices on the rise once again across Oregon as refinery maintenance issues have caused states across the West Coast to see similar jumps. The cost of gas has jumped upwards of 60 cents a gallon on average around Lane County, almost matching the extremely high prices we saw over the summer. And for some, the prices have gotten so high that they're only able to afford a couple of gallons at a time when they go to the pump.
Well, they've been affecting me to the point where I can only afford $10 to $15 worth of gas at a time. Like I just explained to him, I don't get paid until Friday, and unfortunately, I don't have any money to be able to afford these high prices.
According to Gas Buddy, gasoline supply is currently at the lowest it's been in a decade, which has been the primary driving factor of the increased cost. Patrick DeHaan with Gas Buddy adds that if OPEC decides to cut gas production, prices will likely continue to increase. Officials with Gas Buddy and AAA all agree it's likely to get worse before it gets better, but they are hoping gas prices will decrease by late fall. And covering the nation tonight, while attention has shifted to the devastation of Hurricane Ian, tens of thousands of people remain in the dark in Puerto Rico. President Biden surveyed the damage today and vowed continued support. It's been 2 weeks since Hurricane Fiona tore through, knocking out power to the U.S. territory. 90% of the island is back online, but 66,000 people still without water. Biden announced more than $60 million in new funding to help coastal areas with flood warning systems. And that's on top of recent announcements from the bipartisan infrastructure law, totaling upwards of $700 million.
We're investing in Puerto Rico's roads, bridges, public transit, ports, airports, water safety, and high-speed internet. We know that the climate crisis and more extreme weather are going to continue to hit this island and hit the United States overall. And as we rebuild, we have to ensure that we build it to last.
Biden saying they'll put particular focus on making the power grid more resilient for future storms. Hurricane Maria devastated the island 5 years ago, killing nearly 3,000 people. And an independent investigation finds rampant abuse in the National Women's Soccer League. Investigators say emotional abuse and sexual misconduct were systemic in the league across multiple teams, coaches, and players. Former U.S. Attorney General Sally Yates led that investigation. She says abuse is rooted in deeper culture in women's soccer, beginning in youth leagues. Half the league's coaches were fired or stepped down amid allegations of misconduct last season. The report makes numerous recommendations to improve player health and safety. And a new study says the pandemic may have made adults less extroverted, agreeable, and open. Now, according to researchers, the amount of change is about equal to a decade's worth of average personality change. They say this especially applies to young adults who got moodier, more emotional, and more sensitive to stress compared to years past. Researchers say it's not clear if adults will go back to their old personalities as the pandemic's social and economic impacts fade. The results were recently published in the journal PLOS ONE. And still to come on Oregon's News at 7, today we wish Roseburg a happy birthday. How the 150-year-old city's marking the occasion, that's coming up next.
And clear skies reside over the Umpqua Valley on its 150th birthday as we prepare for above average temperatures. We'll discuss how long that lasts next on Oregon's News at 7.
You're watching Oregon's News at 7 on Oregon's Fox.
Welcome back, everyone. On November 8th, candidates for Coos County Commissioner Position 3 will once again face off at the polls. Candidate Rod Taylor says he's the leader the county needs to bring change. Our own Gold Meadows reports.
Rod Taylor and Melissa Cribbins came out of the May election as Coos County's top picks for County Commissioner Position 3 this November. Taylor says several visits to Washington, D.C. showed him local government is the way to penetrate the larger government bubble.
I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a businessman, small businessman for a little over 20 years. Been very blessed in my business and successful enough to be able to take some time to pursue the commissioner position.
He plans to usher in a county government that takes a stand against what he describes as state and federal governments that trespass upon citizens' freedoms.
I believe that liberty is a gift given to each one of us by God, and that every single person deserves equal protection under the law. I felt that that wasn't being adequately protected at the county level.
Making use of ballot measures, Taylor says the county can undo problematic policy and run in a way tailored to its people.
Such as election reform, such as planning and zoning reform, such as salmon policy and other fisheries and wildlife management, where I believe ODF&W has done a disservice to much of the state. Timber management.
One of the first would aim to disallow stipulations of Measure 110 legalizing small amounts of certain drugs. Taylor blames drugs and misplaced services for another big problem, homelessness.
The faith organizations of Coos County can come together and form an alliance. If they're provided some kind of incentive from the county to do so, that returning those homeless kinds of services to the private sector can yield great benefit.
Taylor says there's a small number who choose to be homeless, and he's also intending to bus people back to their home cities.
Thank you, Gold. Taylor says his lack of political aspirations and determination to do what's right despite political pressures set him apart as a candidate. And celebrating a 150th birthday today, the city of Roseburg. Now, the city was officially incorporated on October 3rd, 1872. That's only about 13 years older than the state of Oregon itself. The city is holding several events to celebrate the sesquicentennial, including burying a time capsule that won't be opened for another 50 years.
There are probably two reasons you weren't able to see the sunrise this morning. One, you weren't awake early enough like I was. Or two, you were below the fog layer, allowing for that sunshine to really rain down if you were up in elevation. And then eventually those warmer temperatures helped to mix out the fog as our temperatures managed to warm into the upper 70s for Corvallis, Albany, low to mid 80s for places like Eugene, Springfield, and the Umpqua Valley, but struggling to hit 60 degrees out and along the south coast. It is a brand new month, though, the 3rd of October here, and our 6th warmest month of the year. Typically speaking, we only average at about 65 degrees when you take all of the days and average them out, and it's also our 6th wettest month of the year, typically speaking, with a little bit more than 3 inches of rain. But as far as the snowfall goes for the valley locations or the south coast, next to none, but not to say the same for the Cascades, as we have the potential to see some of the snow flurries to fall here within the next several weeks. But the marine layer that held a tight grip on the south coast today, as that pushes itself further off to the east as we make our way into sunrise tomorrow. So another foggy start to the day. We see Port Orford already picking up on some of that cloud coverage and will likely do so for much of the day tomorrow, if not even into Wednesdays. Air quality warnings remain in effect for eastern Lane County. That's going to be lasting through tomorrow afternoon due to the Cedar Creek fire continuing to burn, again, only at about 32% containment. We have the potential to see some improvements as cooler temperatures start to make their way back into western Oregon. But high pressure here over the next 24 to 48 hours will remain positioned over the Pacific Northwest. And we like to call this a blocking high. It stops any new weather systems from marching their way onshore. You can kind of see how it fizzles out that cold front, but the clouds will remain for the south coast as sunshine yet again rains down for the I-5 corridor, foothills of the Cascades and the Cascades themselves. As for tomorrow morning, it will be a foggy commute for the day, and then we'll start to see that sunshine return with a nice onshore flow. That will help to push some of that smoke back off to the east. Again, the fog layer, it's October. That's what's typical for us here in the Pacific Northwest for the start of the day. Wednesday as that sunshine yet again takes over by the afternoon hours. Early morning lows, they'll be falling back into the 50s in many cases, if not even towards the upper 40s for some of us, as daytime highs manage to warm back up into the mid to upper 70s, 80s for parts of Douglas County, and low to mid 60s for the south coast. As the Eugene Springfield 7-day forecast does show a gradual warming trend by the time we get to Thursday. 80 degrees once again, low 80s still remain for the weekend as we sit above average. The average for today specifically is 71 with Coos Bay 7-day outlook also showing a bit of a warming trend as we get back up close to 70 degrees for Wednesday. Of course, that morning fog will be sticking around with the Umpqua Valley getting into the mid-80s for the weekend with plenty of sunshine. But that's not stopping the trees from really putting on their fall show. Ash trees are at about 50 to 75% with their fall foliage, and our own Linda Morris sending in that photo right there. So Claire, the hot temperatures not stopping the trees from changing.
It's absolutely beautiful, Josh, and it was so hot this weekend. I love it. Well, it was another fabulous week of high school football across Western Oregon. After the break, Erin Slindy recaps all the action with the top 5 plays of the week coming up. Welcome back. We are now halfway through the high school football season, and many teams are in the Willamette Valley, starting to show playoff potential. Sports reporter Erin Slindy gives us her top 5 plays from week 5.
As the weather gets colder, the high school football field keeps getting hotter. The players, coaches, fans, and even your local sports reporters thought that the plays this week were so hot, they shouldn't just be showed once. So, that being said, here are your Slindy Sports top 5 plays of the week. Starting off at defense, Sayusla on the road against Cresswell in the red zone, but the Vikings fumble the ball and the Bulldogs are there to jump right on top of it. The Bulldogs causing a turnover, but Cresswell comes close but still drops this one to Sayusla 46-34. Staying in the secondary, South Eugene at Churchill, Dylan Stevens looking for Sayer Thomas on the sideline, but it's intercepted by Andy Womack. Did he make it all the way? Oh, yes he did. Churchill wins 34-7. Then at Springfield, the Hot Wheels really turning on for Dwayne Fada. Caleb Kasprick finds him in the backfield, and from there he is gone. And no one is able to stop him, but Fada's wheels just not enough to take down the Colts. Thurston wins 47-20. Then what would a play of the week be without a Slindy sack? Sweet Home's quarterback Heath Nichols struggling to find answers, and Brody Borvik, he gets the sack. And the Spartans just not getting it done on defense, but also on offense. Jackson Gibbo with the beautiful pass to A.J. Sargent in the end zone. for a touchdown. Marist Catholic takes this one 42-12, and that's your Slinty Sports Top 5 Plays of the Week.
Thank you, Aaron. The high school football playoffs start November 5th. And coming up, Trader Joe's is rolling out fall snacks, and for the first time since the beginning of the pandemic, you can try some in store. Details ahead. Finally tonight, in-store samples back at some Trader Joe's. The store is offering single-serve treats and snacks to customers. Hot coffee will not be handed out until further notice, and many brands, especially startups, use samples to get attention from potential customers, but the pandemic halted the practice due to safety concerns. I cannot wait for one. Trader Joe's is my favorite store.
Kind of getting back into the groove of things.
Yeah, definitely, especially the Boo Chips. Well, thanks for joining us for Oregon's News at 7. We'll see you back here tomorrow and tonight at 10. Have a great night.